I am looking at my S5 IIX right now. I've been out here with both of these cameras. I've had them on, off, video, photos, all of that. Right now, my battery on my 5 IIX down about 20%. The battery on my S1R2 down 80%. It consumes battery at an alarming rate.
Microphones, lights, everything. Here we go. I won't bury the lead here. I did return the S1R2, as you probably already know, because I probably made that the thumbnail and the title. I would say the number one reason was because I only had 14 days to make a decision, and in that 14 days, it did not live up to what I was hoping it would be. Now, I'll get into all of that right now, but I also am hoping you'll stick around to the end because I actually feel that I learned something pretty important in this little adventure. There were a lot of things that I liked about the S1R2, but unfortunately there were these problems with it that I just couldn't ignore. And that's actually what made me feel like I jumped the gun. And I even said in my previous video when I bought the S1R2 that I bought it in a bit of a panic. This was a little bit of a panic purchase because of the tariffs. I had this whole thing planned. I recorded so much footage of me in the mountains doing S5 IIX and S1R2, both footage and photos. So I was taking footage, my video footage, with the Panasonic 16-35 S Pro. And then the photography I did was with the Panasonic Lumix 28-200. Any photo comparisons that I would make would be with the exact same lens on either the S5 IIX or the S1R2. And the same can be said about any video I did. Any video was taken with this lens. So that's the test that I ran. I was in the mountains, I was doing all this stuff, and I was gonna, splice these videos together and do all of that. I decided to just simplify and just kind of give you the straight facts. So here are the reasons.
I believed, and I think it's because of all the reviews that landed when the embargo lifted and everybody was up in Norway, and they all said that the body was so similar to S5 II and S5 IIX that you could use the same cage. I took that to mean that they were practically the same body. And I even allowed that to affect my belief when I was doing my initial impressions of it. But the problem I've had with this camera from day one is they're not. And this grip, the width of this is much bigger than the S5 IIX. And it may not look much bigger, but in the hand, it feels much bigger. The way this part of the camera grip drives into this part of my thumb is very uncomfortable. So I'm having trouble holding this in a comfortable way, where the S5 IIX felt like it fit like a glove.
Holding the camera in a very natural state was putting pressure right here on my palm, and I found it to be very uncomfortable. It also elevated the dials in order to create its subdials, which is a really clever solution. But by elevating the dials and having the body a little bigger, I just found everything to be a little less comfortable than the S5 IIX. Then, shockingly, the battery life was abysmal.
My S1R2 is at 2 bars on its battery. I am at 4 bars out of 5 bars on my S5 IIX. And I feel that I've been using them almost equally for recording and for doing these tests. Like, I'm already a little worried about the battery in my S1R2. It's definitely going to die. I'm recording in 6.2 open gate right now. I've been recording this whole segment. My battery has not dropped a single bar, so it's still at 60% battery, which is really good for what I've done out here. I think that's very acceptable. Having one single bar is very stressful.
I mean, it was the worst I've seen in any camera. I was out for an hour. They both had their stock batteries in them, and I had had the S5 IIX longer than the S1R2. And after 1 hour, the S1R2 was down to 1 bar, which was just a shocking development. I've never felt that the S5 IIX was going to cost me. I go out, I do videos, and I have a couple of spare batteries, and sometimes I use them, but most of the time I don't. But with the S1R2, you are absolutely going to need spare batteries. But it doesn't end there. That newer, faster processor needs more power than this battery. And I almost feel like Panasonic Lumix should not have shipped those cameras using this battery, or they should have figured out a way to make a higher capacity version of this battery. And when I got back to my studio that day, and I was still like, well, on the fence about, do I return it? Do I not return it? I was going to do this video here with my S1R2, and I tried to use my SSD. The S1R2 couldn't record to SSD on a battery. It said that I had to buy their grip extender, their battery extender. So that says to me that they know that processor requires too much energy. For my workflow, everything that I do for my workflow, this false battery I have in my camera right now, recording to an SSD like I'm doing right now, all of that was just obliterated. It was already too expensive for the S1R2. Now you're tacking this on, and it became like, I got to get this back to the store. I did have to return it that day. So I, at that moment, stopped the recording, stopped everything, cleared the camera, and returned it to the store. The battery life, the inability to record to SSD, the fact that it overheated recording to the CF Express card, which should have been a good enough replacement for the SSD, and then I had to buy a different CF Express card because Lumix only works with some CF Express cards, not the CF Express card that I was using for my Fujifilm. Really was a power hungry beast. I don't really understand why there's so many apologists and why people want to attack me for bringing up that my CF Express card Type B overheated. I don't buy the argument that it requires more power because the sensor is a higher megapixel and the processor is new. Because when I moved from the Fujifilm X-T4, which was a 26 megapixel sensor and a X-Trans 4 processor, to the X-T5, which was an X-Trans 5 processor and a 40 megapixel sensor, I did not lose battery life, and it was the same battery. So it is not that it is a more powerful processor. It is not that it is higher megapixels. It is that that processor has a power flaw. It is a very power hungry device. Now, if you're willing to put up with that, if you're willing to buy a different false battery or use their higher, more expensive battery grip, then fine, but I'm just letting you know that it is absolutely a power hungry processor. And then the last thing, and this was kind of a surprise to me, I didn't like the images as much. I'm actually really surprised by that one. I would not have thought that the image quality would change, but I took this photo of a sort of like rocky cliff on the right, a pine tree, pine needles in the foreground, and like a little bit of dirt on a hill. I took them at practically the same time of day, tried to use the settings as best I could to get the exposure meter right dead zero when I was framing the shot. The photos from the S5 just have a richer look than the S1R2. I thought, well, maybe it's just the way the cloud cover was, or, maybe I did something wrong. And I looked at several different photos, and each one I just kept blindly choosing the S5 So maybe when I did that video in December about full frame versus APS-C, maybe what I didn't realize was the S5 and S5 just have a really good processor and sensor combination. And that's the reasoning behind the return. So if that's the only reason you're here, then you can stop watching this. I'm just going to blather on now about what I learned from this whole experience. I think what I learned was a couple of things. One, if you have camera systems that work for you and you have found something that you just enjoy using, stick with it. Like, you don't go chasing specs. Don't go chasing things that in your mind you think will make your world better. I looked at that flip out screen and I looked at 44 megapixels, and to me, I thought, no brainer. I'm going to get the S5 upgraded. But that's not exactly how it turned out. It wasn't just going from one to another. I see a lot of Fujifilm people complain about this too. There are people who really like a processor from earlier cameras like the X-T3. They swear that makes better images than the ones they've seen out of the X-T5. I used to kind of dismiss that idea, but I think I understand it better now. Once you find your film, right? Just break this down to the tool that it is. Once you find the thing that you like, it has the the right set of features and everything has come together and you're making images that you enjoy, consider why you're thinking of trading it in. Because if it works for you, then it works for you. I do have my Leica Q3, and that camera I love it. I use my Lumix S1RII as a companion to that camera whenever I go out. I have my 16 to 35, so I have a much wider field of view with this lens, and I have my 28 to 200, so I can get much closer to objects with this lens. So these provide a very wide spectrum for me, but when I just need my prime, when I just need the best of the best, I use my Q3. So I have found my system. This really taught me to stop chasing the specs. For now, the S5IIX has been great for me, and I see no reason to even play around with this formula that I've found. The other thing that I want to say is, as I progress in my photography journey, I really feel that I've gotten a lot stronger in the last 5 years as a photographer, and especially the last couple of years. I really feel like I understand what it is I'm looking for with my camera and what I'm aiming for when I share photos or when I create or print my work. I'm feeling more confident in that. In doing so, I recognize that a lot of this gear, a lot of this stuff is a distraction, and I would like to reduce that distraction at this point. I'm starting to recognize what I need for photography and what I need for this channel. And then the last thing that I really came to understand, you might notice that there's been a considerable amount of time between this video and my last video, which is my first impressions of the S1R2. And I had a lot of trouble making this video because I feel like I just didn't really care about it. The reason I'm able to do it right now is because I wanted to talk to this audience about that. I want to make this about just how much I love photography. And I got to a place where I was just doing gear. And I know why. If I do a video about photography, like when I did a video about going to the San Juan Mountains of Colorado, I only got a couple of hundred views on that video. When I do a video about a lens, I can get thousands of views. And as an early YouTuber, I think that the lure of getting more engagement was enticing, and I wanted to chase that, but I can't chase it anymore. I love gear. I really do. I love all this stuff. I'm a total tech nerd. I can't chase all of these things, and I don't want to chase all of these things. When I talk about a camera, when I review my Leica, it'll be because I really want to share what I've learned with it. When I do a review for gear, I want it to be in the name of what it is I'm chasing here, which is photography. I may lose some subscribers over this, but I definitely have to shift my channel away from gear. It's just not working for me. So hopefully you stick around and you stay. I've enjoyed doing this. I love it when people leave comments and I can have a conversation with people in the comments. I think that's great. You can follow me on Threads. I'd love to talk to you on Threads. That's sort of an update, and I know this was really long and rambling, and I don't know how much of it I'll keep, but I hope you got something from it. And the S1R2 was a miss for me. It happens sometimes. I hope that you stick around. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.